Hello and welcome to the MeasurePod by MeasureLab, the podcast dedicated to the ever-changing world of data and analytics, with your hosts Dara Fitzgerald and Matthew Hewson. Between them, they've spent more years than they'd like to admit wrestling with dashboards, data quality, and the occasional Google curveball. So join us as we share stories about how analytics really works today and where it might be headed tomorrow. Let's get into it.
Hello, welcome back to the MeasurePod. I'm Dara, joined by Matthew. How are you today, Matthew?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, getting there. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I thought you might point out my new background.
What background? It's more of an absence of background.
Yeah, I go from I'm a kind of extreme guy on one end or the other. So I went from the very visibly Spanish yellow decor to looking like I could be inside a time capsule.
Yeah, it's a bit of a contrast now, isn't it? Because I've got the cluttery mess that is my office behind me, and then we've just got the plain white, sterile environment of you.
But you could probably guess this, but behind the camera, it's a very different situation. Basically, I set up I treat not only have I moved away from the dining room, I actually treated myself to a proper desk, like an office desk. Yeah, not just a dining room table. Yeah, I've gone crazy.
It's huge steps.
I know, but unfortunately,
you're sitting on a kitchen chair on a pile of books on your laptop, not cutting it anymore. Or how long were you there for?
7-8 months, something like that. But it's remarkable what I'll get used to. I'm pretty low fuss kind of guy. I don't need these complicated setups. Yeah, but I did decide it was probably time to have a proper dedicated space after 8 months or whatever it's been. But what it did mean is everything that was in this room, I just piled up against the corner. So what you get to see is, the nice, overly clean, almost clinical, as you said. But the Spanish sun is outside that window. So I'm just not going to share any of that with you or any of our listeners who also watch the YouTube videos. I don't want to give too much away. Okay, enough about.
You're very low maintenance apart from your need for 15 AI subscriptions at any one time.
Listen,
from that,
I'm a contradiction, aren't we all? And look, that's a serious problem, and I'm seeking help for it. So please, we should have one of those disclaimers. If you're also struggling with AI addiction, please
the
call.
Issues raised.
Yes, no, I'm gradually reducing down my number of AI subscriptions. Although I say reducing them down, I tend to collect new ones as I reduce down the main ones. Like I moved from nobody really needs to have 3 Claude accounts. So I finally saw the error of my ways. But then I collect all these little ones where I see something. It could be anything like like I did it with 11 labs and, anything that I'm just playing around with, I'll tend to just go, I'll just sign up. And then I think, why have I got no money?
I very much say the amount of emails I get from companies that I've all but forgotten what they are or what they do.
He's like, why are you emailing me? Oh yeah, I paid you money 6 months ago.
That's what you get for being, that's the price you pay for being on the cutting edge, Dara.
Yeah, when you respond, when you unsubscribe and you give the reason of, I never signed up to this in the first place, and they reply back to you saying, why have you been paying us for 6 months then? You think, oh, hey, oops. All right, shall we move into the that's enough. That's enough fripperizing, isn't it? That's enough jovial banter.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Whatever any of this means. Yeah, let's get down to the serious. This is a serious podcast. Let's get serious.
What do you want to get serious with?
I mean, we normally do a bit of news, don't we? But it feels like not really anything's happening in the world at the moment, so we should probably just skip the news.
Yeah, but no, it's been pretty slow.
AI especially has been quite quiet.
Yeah, nothing's really happened since ChatGPT 3.5 or whenever that was. No, there are quite a lot of things. I'll be selective with what I say because I think there's pages that we have an internal channel on our Slack at MeasureLab everyone puts AI bits and stuff they found, and it has been a particularly busy. What would it be? 3 weeks since we last recorded the last podcast release? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
So let me just reel off a few of those. So a few big ones in Google, and particularly in BigQuery. So they've released the Gemini agents to general release. I think they've already existed in preview, but they've now released it to general release. So this is that you can essentially create dedicated agents within BigQuery, point it to specific data sets and tables. You can layer in business glossary of terms and other context and things you want. And then you can essentially have a little conversation analytics agent that sits directly within your data warehouse that you can talk to and do things with. So we did our webinar on conversation analytics, well, what was it, December, a few months ago?
1985, I think it was, roughly.
Yeah, and a lot of what we were saying was like, a lot of the complaints we had or the issues that we saw, I presume Google listened to the webinar, but that's a lot of what they've addressed. It's that context, and we were having to like add in column names and things like that to get it to properly work. And now you've got all of these inbuilt agents with that context sitting in there and golden queries to be able to give it examples of good SQL that it should be running, etc.
I like that. That's a good term, isn't it? Golden queries.
Golden queries. Yeah, that's cool. I've played with it a little bit, not as much as I wish I had, but if I played with everything as much as I wished I had, I don't think I'd do anything else. It'd just be signing up to endless subscriptions with AI.
Yeah, we can't all do that, can we?
No, we can't. Someone's got to do something.
But also, you've got to wonder as well.
Yeah, there's definitely that's a joke, but there's definitely a.
It wasn't. I just have a naturally jokey persona.
Yeah, but then in 2 weeks things will have moved on. 2 weeks. This is impossible.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
It is. You just got to get stuck in, don't you? And you've got to see it. You've got to see it as well as not being precious about what you've done. I think that's a psychological change that has to happen, isn't it? It's like get stuck in, play with it the way it is now, but be fully expecting for it to completely change, and something that took you, weeks or days or hours or whatever could be just redundant tomorrow, and that's okay.
Yeah, so definitely a sea change you've got to get used to. Don't be precious about anything. We have released, and to that end, we have released like a write-up on the webinar that we did in December, and to keep it sort of relevant, we've put in like a March 2025 set of updates throughout it that talk about all the new releases that Google's put in since we did that, to try and keep it a little bit relevant to people who want to have a read. So go and have a look at that on the site if you want to read a bit more about our conversational analytics, and go and have a look at the webinar. Our favorite image generation
Nano B
model, Nano B. There's now Nano B2. So they've released a new model, so it's got even more advanced subject consistency, which it was already pretty good at. So I mean, we have half a podcast pretty much dedicated to that at one point. I can't remember when. Sub-second 4K generation. I know that some people have been playing with it internally, and the text has taken a big leap forward. It's a lot
better, yeah. And it had already gotten better, hadn't it? But now it's like it's really sharp. None of these random, made up, almost realistic, like merging of two words or swapping letters around or whatever. It doesn't seem to be doing that anymore, which is good.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm on I'm on Reddit. I always see this. There's a channel called Is It AI? And it's literally people posting pictures because they're confused. They can't quite tell the difference between if it's AI or not. And the hallmarks have always been text in the background of things, nonsense text written on a beer bottle or written on this, that, or the other, or weirdness with fingers, like being all sort of messed up and crowds not looking right. And over the last sort of few weeks, I've noticed a trend where there's not really been a consensus on the images that are being posted. That people are posting things that to me clearly look like real photos. There's like, well, obviously that's not AI, but they're still questioning it. And over that's a symptom of people are just questioning absolutely everything that exists in the world now.
Yeah. It'll reach a point on it where if you're good at, it's not going to be a 50-50 chance anymore. If someone says, is this AI, you're better off saying yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to produce interesting images via AI than to go out and take a picture. And there was, did you see that? I don't know which video model did this, but I've noticed another trend. I'm going off on one here, but anyway, another trend of video models where, like on YouTube and things, I've been seeing a lot of. There was one of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt fighting. I don't know if you saw that, and it just to me, it's like, yeah, that looks
It's
like
real. Yeah.
it looks like it's real. And there's a few people who've been making these, absolutely illegally, but making these Disney, their own little mini Disney clips and their own sort of fanimation versions of anime and things that are getting more and more convincing. So we're definitely in some interesting world. How long until you can generate an entire TV show on Netflix for yourself?
Well, I mean, you could, I guess you could do it now.
You could, well, no, but I mean like Netflix sell it.
What, sell your show or?
No, you go into Netflix, you say, I want a show about an Irishman and a Northman who are renegade cops.
Yeah. Who's and Fits.
Yeah, and you just describe the whole thing, and it just makes you a series that you can just sit and watch.
Hang on, stop. We obviously need to cut this bit out because we're giving away the gold here.
Yeah. What gold?
This is a trademark to TV show. This is going to be the next hit on Netflix. Don't just give it away to our listeners.
Yeah, I'll back out of that. Just cut that. But anyway, the point is,
yeah, that's only a short time away. I thought you meant how long until you could do that for yourself, and you probably could do that now.
Yeah, I've seen people making like shot for shot, sort of like there's an anime that I used to watch as a kid called Dragon Ball Z, and people making shot for shot, like making Leonardo DiCaprio one of the characters, and they're like making shot for shot, and like it's mad. But
I'm quite impressed.
There's a lot of lawsuits.
I got a reference for once.
It's quite an old, right? It's an 80s TV show.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it worked for me. Yeah,
I'll just talk in 80s and 90s.
And then, yeah, that's more my jam. You made a point the other day as well about how it's not going to reach a point. It's kind of there now where it's almost going to flip the other way around, where you were looking for things like the text being a bit funny to kind of show that it's AI. It's going to reach a point where it's going to be the other way around. If it's too perfect, you're going to know it's AI. You're going to look for those human mistakes. You're going to look for typos. You're going to look for things that are a little off as a sign of authenticity. Whereas if something's too perfect and too polished, you're just going to think, well, that's obviously not. No human made that. It's too correct.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I intentionally leave spelling mistakes. I mean, I make a lot of spelling mistakes because I'm dyslexic, which I used to spend endless time correcting. But now, I'll leave that in there to give it a bit of the old spice. Yeah.
Although Matthew obviously wrote that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's becoming a superpower. Yeah. The other thing that came out, which looks interesting, is Google Code Wiki.
Yeah.
It's what it is in a nutshell. It's essentially AI generated documentation and diagrams and all of these things on any given GitHub repo. And looking into it, it's essentially powered by NotebookLM. So it's presumably pulling all these things in, generating all of the documentation, everything around it, and then building out diagrams and these things using NotebookLM. But I thought you'd just be able to point that at any repo you wanted to, but I couldn't do that. It said it was working on cataloging repos, which I was a bit disappointed with.
Yes, I agree. And there's a sign up, I think, as well to that. You need to sign up to be able to do that. So it's just got a limited set of repos that you can look at now. But I also was just underwhelmed in general.
Okay.
Just
please elaborate.
Well, I get the idea of it, but I didn't think it offered it. Maybe it was just the way they've done those examples, but it didn't really offer anything over and above what you would just get from Git. I didn't really see it. It wasn't interactive enough. It didn't have anything in there that stood out as being really wildly different from what you'd see in some of the diagrams and stuff, but you could obviously get them in a repo. And if you're using something like Obsidian, then you'll get those by default. So I don't know. I think I expected more, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that was wrong of me, but it just looks like a slightly more stylish Git repo.
When I first saw it, I assumed, and this is what they say, a new perspective on development for the agentic era. I assumed it was very much going to be generating AI compatible documentation for everything else. So that agents can understand the things with a lot more ease. But I don't know.
Maybe it will. I mean, it's probably just a classic case of like they just put something out there to get, put the feelers out, and then it'll evolve. It's probably not
Surprised
the
they've not
finished.
changed the name of it.
Well, it will in time. Yeah, it'll become something completely obscure, and then it'll just become Code Wiki again.
Yeah, get into agent space.
But yeah, it's interesting, but I kind of want to see where they go with it.
Yeah, it's been a long time as well since they first announced that. That's a bit of a Google habit.
Yeah, it was ages ago.
They talk about it months and months and months ago, which as we've alluded to pretty much in every podcast for the last 6 months, months and months and months is a very, very long time. So you kind of forget about it. It just goes out of your memory entirely, and then it pops back up. Maybe if you'd have seen it 3 months ago, you'd have been a bit more in awe of it. But because of what you've seen since, you're a bit like, meh, whatever. Google Workspace CLI came out. There's been an interesting trend of CLIs and people maybe recommending CLIs over MCPs in some instances. I know that the CLI can go into an MCP, but Google's released a full workspace CLI, so you can create docs, templates, the whole 9 yards. So I'm sure that's going to be in an MCP near you, or in Claude, or in wherever, and will be a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah, our friends, we don't know the guy, but we're OpenClaw fans, and the guy who created OpenClaw, I think a lot of this came from him, or he certainly stirred a bit of this up where he's kind of favoring CLIs over MCPs. But it's another one of these things, isn't it, where some people latch onto these things and it becomes a bit polarized, but it's not really a one or the other, is it? It's like they're both useful, and it depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think, and it depends who you are and what your knowledge is a little bit. I think it can be a lot easier just to, I don't know, in Claude Cowork, for example, just to plug in a connector and away you go, rather than if you are going to Claude Code or into Terminal and adding in and installing CLIs via that methodology. It can be a bit, pretty much instructions to take you through it step by step nowadays, but it's still, and I think, horses for courses, I think is the term I used, but yeah, it's not one or the other. What else? Somewhat. I'm trying to pick through these, but this is the boiled down list, by the way.
Yeah, just for our listeners' benefit, I'm looking at the full list that Matthew shared as part of our prep before this, and it's like blindingly long list. So yeah, this really is just the super trimmed down version.
There's a few interesting things come out with Cowork. So there's scheduled tasks was released, which I've been using quite a lot. Well, we've recently sort of got Cowork quite widely at Measure Lab and been using it, and multiple people have been using it. Scheduled tasks is quite cool. Similar sort of thing that you'll have seen in things like OpenClaw and OpenAI's had a kind of version of this for a while, but not quite. So I've got a few set up that like it looks at my downloads and desktop folder in the morning and organizes them from the day's worth of downloading and recordings and things. I've got some looking up news, pulling things in. I've got like a daily routine to look across Gmail and Slack and things like that and pull in new memory pieces and new tasks, etc. So I'm just kind of getting my head around what I can get it doing and working on, but it's kind of, you can imagine setting it off to do all sorts of things overnight while you're sleeping. It's that promise of 24/7 worker working for you. I'm just trying to figure out what I want it to do.
Yeah, and are you finding as well, like, are you having to go more and more meta with it? Because it's like you're like, I'm too busy to do this thing, so I'll set up a process or get an agent or sub-agent or something on it, and then it's doing it, but then you're like, I'm too busy to look at the outputs, so then you need another one to look at all the outputs, so then you just think, like, where does this stop? How many layers? I'm basically just building my own elaborate pyramid scheme, an AI pyramid scheme for myself for content.
I knew pyramid schemes would come back.
I don't know why they ever went out of fashion, to be honest.
No. Well, here we are. But and yeah, essentially Nvidia's at the bottom of that pyramid.
Yeah.
Just collecting all the cash. Yeah, so the scheduled crash, and then there's also Claude Remote Control, which again, a lot of the stuff I'm mentioning about Claude, and I can't remember if we mentioned this last week or not. I don't think we did, but it feels very reactionary to OpenClaw. Like a lot of the features of OpenClaw that people were finding really useful suddenly are rolling out very quickly on Anthropic. And remote controls, essentially, you can set up a session to start doing some coding or something on your laptop, and then you can continue that session remotely via the app on your phone.
And I guess Cowork itself was kind of predated OpenClaw, but it's gotten a lot better since. Like when Cowork came out, it was maybe it was because we were busy using Claude Code and didn't initially see maybe the full benefit of it. But I do think objectively it's gotten a huge amount better since they first released it, and part of that will be the pressure from probably not just OpenClaw, but just the other pressure from the other solutions, the other alternatives anyway.
Yeah. When we can probably dive in a bit deeper to Cowork after the
lengthy news. Yeah. There's only 750 items left to cover.
We're nearly there, I'm sure. Last podcast we said GPT 5.3's come out. Of this podcast, I might say GPT 5.4's come out. And I've not checked on this, but it feels like 5.1, 2, 3, and 4 have all come out this year. I might be wrong there. There definitely seems to be a pace change with OpenAI. Well, everyone actually. Google. I think we might have mentioned this last time, or maybe we didn't. Gemini 3.1 came out. We definitely mentioned Claude 4.6 coming out because 5.3 came out at the same time. But yeah, more releases, more like topping benchmarks, all this. They seem to be just doing this slowly but surely, incremental gains over the next one, and the next one come out and say, I'm better, and on we go.
What else would they be doing with the 100 billion or whatever that they've raised through all of their... I mean, the least they could do is put out a new version every couple of days or every couple of weeks. Otherwise, where's all that money going?
I'm assuming as well, I might be wrong here, but I'm assuming that 5 is the training, like the compute, and then the points are improvements on reasoning and behavior and post-processing stuff. That's the way I've always kind of, because I can't see how they could possibly be doing 5.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a couple of months when they need to train.
Yeah, I would have the same. I mean, I don't know, but that sounds reasonable to me. Yeah. But I have to admit, I'm not really keeping up with OpenAI's. I'm just not. Again, I know we've said it quite a few times. I'm kind of Anthropic fanboy. But even between that or Gemini, but I'm just not seeing it anymore with... you've just done a thumbs down. For anyone not watching, for some reason, you disagree with me. You just did a little emoji thumbs down there.
I don't know why that keeps happening. Something on my body that isn't my fingers must look like a thumbs up or down.
Suggests a thumbs down. Yeah, you've just got a thumbs down energy about you.
I have, yeah, right now.
But yeah, I'm just...
No, I don't use it either.
And I don't know.
Used to.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Anyway, whatever that means, that may or may not mean anything, but it just is interesting with all of the continued huge amounts of money they're raising. But and obviously they do still have the market share, the largest, I think, but that's probably because of all the people who started using it basically like a search engine and just are still using it, because why would they move to anything else? Maybe we covered this. I'm losing track of what we've said in real life.
We did talk about it a little bit, but yeah, that we were unsure if OpenAI were in trouble, whether we were not in that bubble, whether... Yeah, because we talked... Yeah,
we did.
Sorry, listeners. We don't know what we're talking about anymore, but...
Did we before? Is that a new problem?
No. People are still listening, and
it's the merging. No, in our defense, it's the merging of there's so much news happening, and it's and a lot of it all links together. Even an example of which I just thought when we were talking about OpenAI, this back and forth, or this war that was going on between the Pentagon and Anthropic, and then OpenAI swept in, even though Sam Altman had said we would stand behind Anthropic's decision, and then weirdly 24 hours later or something they had taken the contract. So that whole fiasco is all kind of happened in the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, and it's weird because there was one big news story that came out that was saying Anthropic is dropping its security posture to keep pace and this, that, and the other. And then literally the next day, there was this big open letter they released that was what they had said to the Pentagon of like, you're not allowed to use it in autonomous weapons and this, that, and the other. So I couldn't quite tell I can't quite remember what that original story was, unless it was a preemptive story that they were going to allow the DOA to do that. DOA? Pentagon. That's what DOA is.
DOJ, isn't it? In
DOJ. I had Department of Aggression in my head.
Probably a better name. Yeah. Well, what is it?
Yes, I don't know what that original story was.
No, I don't know either. And now they're taking the Pentagon to court, but I don't. We mentioned this before as well. It's a bit weird. It's like if you're gonna do the deal there's a little bit of what would you call, not posturing, but there's a little bit of kind of like convenience, I think, around the Anthropic position. Like they were happy to take the contract what did they think they were going to do with Claude?
It's just for clerical. It's just for organising Christmas parties and the potluck
supplies. Like organising when the coffee needs to get ordered. It's certainly not for mass surveillance or guiding drones or anything like that. I mean, as if the Pentagon would use it for that.
Yeah, I mean, to be cynical, I like the Anthropic messaging and everything resonates with me, but I'm pretty convinced a large amount of it is still marketing in one way, shape or form. That's their flavor, that's their brand, right? But the brand is there ultimately to sell more of this thing. And if it stops working ultimately and they start falling behind, I wouldn't be surprised if they switched that brand or changed that posture.
Yeah. Happened with Google. It happens with all of them, doesn't it? Yeah.
And OpenAI, I wasn't particularly surprised that they jumped in, and because I feel like they need wins, they need money. They're making a lot of big expensive bets, like we said last time.
But it was just weird that Sam Altman, I don't know whether that was him getting ahead of himself, and then the board said, hang on a minute, we need to do this. This is an opportunity. But he had come out and said he was, I don't know the exact wording, but he came out supporting Anthropic and then had to backtrack, I think pretty much within 24 hours. But people forget that, don't they? It's like there's a lot of flip-flopping that goes on with these things. And
yeah, there is. And yeah, and so Anthropic are suing the government because essentially Trump said, Anthropic are not having any government contracts anymore, in the way he tends to make sweeping statements like that.
Toys out of the pram.
Yeah. So I think, yes, it's all gone tits up.
Yeah, that's it. That's the correct technical term. Yeah.
So that's pretty much, I think,
the biggies, aren't they?
They're the biggies. There was Perplexity Computer, which was their attempt at sort of like a Cowork type release.
I looked at it, and then I closed the tab down.
Yeah, and if Dara doesn't immediately sign up to it, then it's not worth.
There wasn't an opportunity to give them enough. Well, there wasn't enough opportunity to give them my money, so it was like, yeah, I just thought, well, look, if there's no long-term subscription, then I'm not interested.
At least 3 pages to a pay window, and I ain't got time for that.
Don't give me that kind of friction to hand my money over.
No, but yeah, so that looks interesting, but it was very much seemed to be the way the way the world is heading currently, from these frontier models or these big AI companies to make these local computer-based assistants that can do things for you. So that brings us, it kind of brings us on to our subject, because I think one of the big pieces that we've been using a lot internally recently at Measure Lab is Claude Cowork. And as we kind of had like a bit of a Google focused special episode last week on where Google are at and what they're building and their specific little piece of the pie, it feels like it might be a good opportunity for us to do the same for Claude, because I think this is probably true for you as well, Dara, they are the models that we both use the most, I would say. despite us both having access to Gemini, the forefront Gemini models, but yes, we do use Claude quite a lot. What is it? Why do you use it more than anything else?
I think, and we did kind of we share the cynical view, but I one of the reasons, even if it is largely marketing, is just their approach to what they share and their approach to trying to expose weaknesses in their own models, and all the red teaming they do, and they talk about all that openly and the vulnerabilities, and maybe it is mostly marketing, but you've got to try and support the morals where you see them, and I think of the companies that are out there, I'm no fool. I know they're all trying to be profitable, they're all trying to make money, but I just like what Anthropic stand for. So that was the main reason. But to be honest, like since then, that was kind of what got me to try them out. But it's the usability of the features they roll out. It just is a little bit more, I don't know, everything just feels a little bit more considered. It all joins up a little bit better. I mean, Google, like, they just don't make things easy. And even though Gemini is woven through everything, it's just not, the Google ecosystem is just not as easy to navigate around. It's possibly, it's, as we talked about last time, it's better for things like, they're obviously focusing a big part of their efforts on infrastructure and cloud, and like they there's no arguing with them on that perspective. But when it comes to kind of using the AI models, I feel more comfortable with Claude, definitely. And as we said about OpenAI, I mean, I don't know, they were the first one I used because they were the first one everyone pretty much used in terms of the mainstream. But I just don't see any reason to use it now. Even if their models were better, I might use them for certain things. In fact, I think I do use them. I do use some of the OpenAI models for some of the things that I do. Like, yeah, exactly for both of those. Yeah. But as a general all-purpose AI, I don't like what they stand for, and I don't really see any reason to use it compared to using Claude or even Gemini.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much the same. I like it. I like the moral stance. It's not necessarily the moral aspects of it that gets me. I like the data. I like the studies and the sort of sitting and reading about like how they've gone about certain things, and the economic index stuff they released to sort of show global adoption. And there was a we'll try and remember to share it in the podcast notes, but there was like a spider diagram they released the other day that shows like potential AI on the table versus utility actually being used, and it's just interesting data. And ultimately we're data people, right? And it's nice to see. But so there's all of that, and then I just I've not used, full disclosure, like the local codex 5.3, 5.4 stuff, but pretty much from a coding perspective, Claude Code was just head and shoulders above everything else for a long time. Like I really consciously tried to use Gemini CLI to do some of the coding stuff. I tried to use anti-gravity. So like I've just sort of held them at arm's length because I'm like, no, I only use Claude. But it is just better. And it produces, the experience is better, and it just produces better code from what I can see. And I've talked to, some people internally who've gone on that same journey. They've really sort of said, no, I'll use Gemini, and then for coding purposes, they've ended up coming to the same realization that Claude Code just works better. And I've got a few developer friends who are the same. They've used various things like Cursor.
Oh, Cursor, yeah.
I've got a few developer friends who have used Cursor previously, and like they've got company licenses for Cursor, and then they've dipped into Claude Code and Claude CLI, and have sort of had that. I think we mentioned the term Claude pilling last time, but yeah, it was just that kind of awakening moment. And then added to that, we both used OpenClaw quite a lot, and that was basically built around things like Claude Skills, which is a really neat and interesting way of getting LLMs to do certain things. I know there's equivalencies in the different frontier models, but it felt like they kind of nailed it. MCPs, another Claude Anthropic thing that has pretty much bedded in as the standard across the industry. And then Cowork, which has, I think you said it earlier, but it's really moved on in the past month to the point where it is. I was using it like on Friday to just work through a load of busy work and cleaning, and I had like 6-7 different things running off and doing things for me at once and coming back and returning, sending messages for me on Slack and all sorts of stuff, and it was going off onto the Chrome browser and doing some research over there, and I got this real sense of the future that I hadn't before, so it seems again like another thing they've put out there that is bang on the money.
Yes, it is. I think we maybe initially, because the whole idea with it is that it's like Claude Code for non-code tasks. But I think when it first came out, and it probably is a combination of it, like improving a lot since then, but also maybe when you were already used to Claude Code, like you were probably the same. The first couple of things I tried in Cowork, I did them and then thought, why didn't I just do that in Claude Code? But now it's the improving the connectors and the plugins, and I think it's clicking now, isn't it? It's like, okay, for all these other tasks where you're not building something, the power of Cowork to go off and integrate with all of these different systems, and as you said, have to have these things happening in parallel, and it's all automated. I mean, it's frightening how capable it is.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of, I was kind of getting it set up for the company at the end of mid to late last week. And I was a bit like, this is very buggy. It's very buggy, this. And then I realized that pretty much all of those bugs were me being an idiot. So I've changed my tune on that a bit. It does feel a lot more polished than it did. Like I've been using it pretty solidly for a good half a week now, and it's been pretty bulletproof. And yeah, I built like a plugin, for example. So plugins are like they're almost like containerized sets of skills and MCPs and instructions and things like that. And I built one to gather up documentation and build manifests and regularly update that documentation and act on them and create potential call meeting notes and just loads of things. It's kind of just started. It's like any of this stuff. You have to start doing it first, start playing with it, and then slowly but surely the use cases start kind of revealing themselves, and you get on a bit of a roll, and away you go. You're building some really, really interesting stuff. I know you were playing quite a bit with the data plugin, right?
Yeah. And even that, like I was saying this to somebody earlier, like the fact that that's one plugin and it uses whatever connectors you want to use. So we were playing around with it with BigQuery, or you could have the GA4 data in there, whatever. And that's one plugin and one or two connectors. And that in itself, just on its own, is, I'm trying to think how to caveat this, like potentially that is a better, easier, more accessible way of working with data than some paid for enterprise solutions. Now, obviously there's caveats there because those enterprise solutions will offer all sorts of other things that you won't get straight out of the box with the data plugin. But just in terms of getting at data, visualizing it and interrogating it, it just works. And it's crazy. And you can, because it's effectively Claude Code, even though it's Cowork, you could get it to, you can build with HTML, or you can write Python, it can write CSS, whatever. And you're just connecting straight to it and working with it. And it's crazy. And that's just one plugin. It's not like that's what it does, but it already does that better than some things that only do that. And you could apply that probably to everything else, every connector, every plugin, and the ability then to pull all those things together and then have the Claude model on top of that is just, it's insane. the possibilities are endless, really.
Yeah, it goes back to something. I think it was Mark Edmondson said. It's like anything you currently have, anything that's built like Claude Cowork right now, and its ability in that plugin and its ability to go and pull data out and do certain things. Nothing has to change. A new model comes out, and that's just instantly a better product.
It's better, yeah, without a tweak, yeah. Like it's the plumbing is there, the infrastructure is there, and every time a model comes out, it just ramps it up by another. Well, who knows? 10%, 100%, 200%. Like who knows?
Yeah, and it's the first time I think I've seen so. We've had, we've been messing around with AI and building out AI platforms and playing with conversational analytics for like probably in the literal years at this point. But we've been trying to sort of get that AI adoption wider across the company, and we've had some successes, some failures there, partly because maybe some aspects of AI and the maturity of it wasn't there yet. But I think partly because people have only ever really thought of it, who aren't coders, have only ever thought of it as a chat interface of like, you just go and ask this box a question and it will return an answer to you. And then maybe you'll copy and paste that and take that somewhere else and blah, blah, blah. And while that is very impressive, and we mustn't forget that is still bonkers and magic, the way this now just integrates and can just perform actions for you, I've seen a much more sort of enthusiastic I've seen a lot of light bulbs going off, not just at Measure Lab, but everywhere, like a bit, okay, like this is what it can do.
This is what it can do, yeah. Because you're moving away from, as you say, like a standalone thing that you've gone and you've put a question in, it's given you an answer back, and it's been great, and that's sped up a lot of processes. It helps with a lot of thinking and brainstorming and all the rest of it. But you've still had to go and then take that into, whether it's a spreadsheet or a document or whatever, or into an analytics platform or an email marketing platform, wherever you're going to do the thing then. And what this is allowing you to do is it's jumping you 10 steps ahead and saying, not only can you pull the data sources in and then run some analysis and ask questions on it, you can then do the final thing that you were trying to do in the first place. And you can do, like, there's probably a lot of like roles now that you could already just do everything within Cowork. You wouldn't need a software license. You just need your Claude license. You wouldn't need to be switching between tabs all the time. You'd literally just have it connected to whatever data sources you're using, whatever context you're using, and then your outputs would all be there as well. Create me a spreadsheet, create me a graph, create me a report, whatever, and you could just do everything within Cowork. And it didn't exist. They vibed it into existence, 3 months ago or something like that? Not even, maybe 2 months ago.
No, it's such a simple idea. I mean, all the things you just described, kind of, and maybe this is why, I've been banging the drum a little bit at Measure Lab, because I was in the Claude Code world, and I could see that all the things you described, you could kind of see that happening in Claude Code, right? You could just go there, say, do this thing, you see these files being created and the code being read left, right, and center, and it pops out a localhost URL, and you click it, and it's like, fucking hell, there's an app there. So that sort of autonomous going off, that agentic behavior, right? That agentic stuff has been clearer to people who maybe have been in the CLI world and working in Claude Code and other similar aspects, but not necessarily to a wider audience who aren't. That's not their natural world that they normally live in. And it feels like, yeah, that is now, it's crossing that bridge. And maybe I say it's obvious. Why didn't they do it before? Maybe they just couldn't quite, but now they can. But whatever it is, it's cool. And I think I can see now, playing with it for the past week, why they've been trying to crack down so hard on OpenClaw to close like the OAuth gap. So for those who don't know, you can, with OpenClaw, you could use your sort of OAuth connection to Claude to use as the models and everything with an OpenClaw, which is significantly cheaper, because if you use the API, Claude's very hungry. OpenClaw is very hungry, and it would cost you an absolute fortune, like thousands of pounds probably.
Even I don't go down that route.
Yeah, it's not a subscription, is it? You're not interested in. And playing with it. I think I was doing something today. I can't remember what it was, but I was like organizing all my files and like creating like a memory place, a folder for it to work in permanently, and organizing files and things. And it was going off and creating Claude Code instances and stuff like that. And I thought, this is what they want you to subscribe to their setup, and it for it to be a nice cheap way of doing all this stuff, or relatively cheap. And they don't want some open source community to co-opt their OAuth and steal their thunder,
which is fair. Have you got to a point yet with it where you can see what would be lacking? Because we've obviously both been playing around with OpenClaw. Now you've spent a lot of time on Cowork. I haven't spent as much time, but I am liking what I see. Are you, because with some of the memory, you've got like folder structures and you're setting up memory. So is that where you're heading for that? You're basically trying to replicate what you were previously doing with OpenClaw.
Yeah, essentially. I think the main gap is potentially the Telegram, the sort of send a message and then let it go off and perform various actions, because I don't know that. I mean, it might be possible. Well, one of my next thoughts is to talk to Cowork and say, like, right, how could I extend out your capabilities? How could we add to you and see if it's forthcoming with those kinds of ideas? But yeah, I'm building out really simple, really, but it's a file that it lives in. We've got like vaults. We've got Obsidian vaults for various different things, like a management one and then a more wider company one, and all these different types of collections of MD files and thoughts and things like that. So they all exist within it. And it's got like a Claude instruction file, a memory file, a tasks file, and then it can kind of just work within there. It's got all the context from everything. You can look through memories, update memories, add and remove tasks based on messages I've got in Slack and Jira and Gmail. It can pull all that context out. It's kind of doing enterprise. I'm finding the enterprise knowledge retrieval stuff better than Google, which is mad because most of it's Google.
It is, but it's the interface, isn't it? It's that like.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not. And maybe it's worth saying that I've probably not used Gemini for a month, and that's a long time. So I don't know where it is now, but also
I think it's back to what I said earlier, which is like even Google, like Google's always so much more capable than what people can easily access as well. So it's not just about whether it can do the same things; it's how easy it is for you as the user to actually interface with that. And I think and maybe an advantage Anthropic have is they're not trying to do as many different things as Google and connect them all together. But things just work better. They're just more intuitive than trying to it's not just about capability. It's about accessibility as well, isn't it? And how you interface with that. And Google struggle with that.
And I do wonder if, I can't remember if he said this last week in the last podcast or if this was a separate conversation we had, but Anthropic, you would imagine, I don't know how big the company is. It's probably pretty large, but the distance between the frontier model makers and the Claude Code team and the Claude Cowork team, and I don't imagine it's very big. I imagine there's like handfuls of people all sort of very much collaboratively working, because ultimately the product is Claude. But Google is huge, massive, and the DeepMind is almost a separate entity and company within Google that is creating the Gemini models, and then they are being presumably passed out to all of these distinct teams. Some of those teams might be bigger than the entirety of Anthropic, and it sometimes feels like there's not the cohesion or the sort of passing back and forth and pulling together of resources and ideas in Google. It feels like you
just don't have that luxury at that size and scale, and it's that's a we talked a lot about their advantages last time, but that's a disadvantage in this current world, is their size could work against them.
It's a disadvantage for a lot of there's going to be a disadvantage for a lot of large companies, because if they are big, their size and everything has been an advantage for them in the past in some areas is going to start being a disadvantage because they need to move quickly. If you've got 20 odd stakeholder groups or more than that, and your only recourse is to dictate AI usage and tool usage from one up high and let that propagate down, that's so slow. And with the pace at which things are moving, and it feels like, if depending on the industry, but if some upstart disruptor appears who can move quicker and sort of do something differently, there's a real danger there that there's a lot of disruptors start appearing in a lot of sectors because they're able to just work with this new stuff.
Just move. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you're a massive company and you need help, just come to Measure Lab. We'll sort you out. No problem.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what you're really saying there. Yeah. And going back to just for a second, because I just wanted to ask you on it, you were saying about how, the kind of Telegram, and obviously you can use WhatsApp and there's other channels as well for OpenClaw, but I don't know about you, but I've kind of become a bit frustrated with that. And actually, I don't know how much of an advantage that even is. And with things like the remote, whatever they call it, the Claude remote access or whatever, some of those advantages that maybe OpenClaw had, I'm not sure how much they exist anymore anyway.
I haven't used, to be completely honest, I haven't used the Telegram functionality probably in a couple of weeks. I don't know why. There's a certain amount of novelty to it, I think, that you can sit on your settee and be like messaging and it's going off and delivering and building things out, etc. And there's definitely use there. But yeah, I've not tried the remote Claude session yet. But if I'm working on a project and just start up Claude Code on my computer, I could probably still just go and sit on my settee and just be talking and getting it to perform new tasks from there. I don't know, how much are you still using it?
Well, I'm using it less. And when I am using it, I'm frustrated with it. So I know you did this too, but I went and built mine's not as advanced as yours, but I went and built my own custom desktop app because I was getting frustrated with like having to go to Telegram to do things and then some of the limitations within Telegram. But then again, back to that problem we mentioned earlier, if you're basically using an application to then copy and paste text out of that and put it into whatever you want to use it in. So Telegram was a novelty at the beginning, but it's not offering as much anymore. But then I think with Cowork, I guess that's at the moment, there's no way to work with Cowork apart from in Claude Desktop, right? That's the only way you can.
Yeah, because I think that's its big idea in a similar way to that. That's essentially what Claude Bot called. I can't remember the name of it now. OpenClaw.
OpenClaw.
Is it meant to be able to enact things on your files and your browser and things like that? It's meant to be like a local sitting system.
Yeah, sits on your machine. Yeah.
And Cowork's the same. It's meant to work in your files and use the Chrome extension to go off and do things in Chrome and all that good stuff. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if there's at some point a way for you to deploy it.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if they're going to head that way. Yeah.
Because it's worth saying, I suppose, that it can be a bit RAM hungry, right? From what I've heard, I've not got that problem because
it depends how much RAM you have.
Like I said, I ran out of RAM like a year and a bit ago because I was messing around with AI. So you're just too slow. But yes, it can be a RAM hungry. So I've not noticed that because I've got 32 gigs of RAM. But
I told you, Claude mocked me. Claude basically said, "Of course your Mac is struggling. You've only got You've only got the RAM of a small child."
Yeah, you got a Fisher Price laptop.
A Fisher Price laptop. Yeah, basically mocked me. So
yeah, but no, it's really cool. It is cool. I'm going to keep using it. I'm definitely getting more and more utility out of it and that kind of general sector of always-on assistance that I think OpenClaw is the beginning of, but I think it's going to be rolling out heavily everywhere. And I'm sure with OpenAI soon, because they literally hired the guy who built it.
They'll have a version.
So
yeah, well, that's actually a really good point. Like, what's he doing?
Yeah, building that or advising on that, surely.
And is it gonna offer something over and above Cowork? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard. It would be hard for them to pull avid users of Claude away now, I think. It would really have to be offering something like truly above and beyond.
We said this about, if you think about it, we kind of said this about ChatGPT for a while. Well, we would have said when ChatGPT first came out, like,
yeah, what would the reason be to move away from it? Yeah,
Google are dead, and then Google bring slowly but surely claw back and start to pull together. And like last week, we talked about all of Google's advantages. They have a lot more going for them other than just the models.
Yeah, they're spread a lot more across different areas.
It's up, and maybe what we'll have to do, we've done Google, we've done a deeper one on Claude. Maybe we're going to have to sign up to ChatGPT and go and actually use it for a few weeks, and then do a deeper dive on ChatGPT.
I might be on holiday that week. No, it might be amazing. And listen, I shouldn't say this so confidently on the podcast, because I'll probably end up in a couple of weeks being like, yeah, no, I'm totally
what was I doing on Claude?
Claude's rubbish. Yeah, you never know. It's all in flux, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
This is true. All we should say is this is true at the time of recording. Everything we say is vaguely true at the time of recording.
As far as we know it, and we're not.
As far as we know. So it may or may not be true at the time of recording. Right, that's probably a good point to stop. And I look forward to preparing for the OpenAI dedicated episode.
I'll start researching, giving you more things to subscribe to. You like that at least.
That's a good point, actually. Well, I do. I am paying them money for what I am using them for.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's it for this week's episode of the Measure Pod. We hope you enjoyed it and picked up something useful along the way. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on so you don't miss future episodes.
And if you're enjoying the show, we'd really appreciate it if you left us a quick review. It really helps more people discover the pod and keeps us motivated to bring back more. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you